We're live. We're livity live. This is how special today is, everybody. It's not just Queen on the call. We have Queen. We have Queen here. Like, we have Queen right next door to me. This is how special today is. This is how much we have to say.
Facts. I came out sipping my tea, ready to hang with my boy, and I was like, I'm putting the shades on, I'm putting the hat on, and it's happening because, honey, I mean,
we'll get into it in a minute. We'll wait a couple of minutes at least. But for the next hour or so, guys, buckle up because both Queen and I have very similar things to say, but we also do still have very different viewpoints and some things going on. And we're in two very different states of what professional wrestling is doing right now because, like I said, we'll get into it in a minute. But first and foremost, I'm sure everybody knows Queen from Twitter and has seen your tweets. I was able to ask her before, but I'll let her tell everyone now. She is safe. The hurricane did kind of subside a little, but there must be a lot. This is just out of pure curiosity. I've never been in a hurricane. It doesn't really happen in this part of Australia. Cyclones, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't really happen in this part of Australia. So I've never experienced what it's like to prepare for that, because preparing for that, I could imagine you just be kind of sitting there like, all right, well, we're going to be without power. We're going to be, potentially in a dangerous situation. How do you get in the mindset to just be like, all right, and you got a little one. So it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a lot of prep work. So what I will say is where I am in the ye old New England, we're not really hurricane people per se. We get a lot of tropical storms, right? When you think hurricanes, you normally think like Gulf of Mexico area, of course, Katrina and New Orleans and Louisiana as a whole and Florida. But in New England, we do get hurricanes sometimes, but mostly tropical storms. So we know we have to be without power.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, right? We're used to blizzards and a lot of snow, which also could potentially cause you to be without power. So it happens. But it's a lot of preparation ahead of time, making sure you have your batteries, making sure you have enough food, enough water.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks, that maybe live in a more rural part of where I am, you have to make sure you have a generator so you can run your electricity.
Yeah.
So you don't lose all your food. So it's a lot of like that sort of thing. So if you don't have a generator, where's your food going to go if it goes bad? It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But you just kind of like get in the mindset of, okay, this is going to happen. And there's going to be really damaging winds, and we just kind of deal with it. That we're used to, I think, more than anything else. We have a lot of damaging wind, especially last year. Last year was just a clusterfuck in general.
I mean, last year was a mess.
It was. But no, we're good. We're good.
Well, that's at least you're good.
It didn't even turn out like it was. Yes.
It's good. The only thing that I can I kind of relate it to is preparing for a fire. We have to prepare for fires here, which is very different. Similar. It's different. It's similar. It's more of a I guess the difference is that where the fire is situated and you head in the opposite direction of the fire. Whereas a hurricane is kind of like, you're just kind of in it.
It could change at any time.
But I mean,
that's
fires,
similar to wildfires.
Fires just move at such a rapid pace anyway. Right. So you're kind of like, oh, fuck. Like, here it comes. And you either just got to learn to fight it or you just have to get away from it. And sometimes the safest thing to do is not to get in a car and drive away. Something is to just stay put. And hope for the best, really. But we have to have literal bushfire plans in place to be like, this is going to happen, whatever.
Emergency.
And I'm in a pretty situated town. So it happens outside of me, but it's still very much possible for it to come in and be like, fires like hurricanes don't fuck around. They don't care about you at all.
Oh, they don't care about you at all.
They're just whatever. But hello everyone in the chat.
Shit.
Queen and I in here, we're talking about the weather at the moment, but we are going to talk about professional wrestling. Like I said, for the next hour or so, we've got a lot of stuff to say. So I guess we'll just kind of start on without getting into too much of a rant yet. Let's start with what we are feeling right now is the vibe of professional wrestling. A lot of people are saying we're going into a boom period. We're in a boom period. We're in a very good time for professional wrestling. But this is just a pure personal take on this, by the way, guys. We're not saying we're right or wrong, and we're not going to preach here and telling you what to watch. There's nothing worse than when someone says, you can't watch this because I don't like it. I couldn't give a fuck. A lot of you that are watching right now are probably going to watch until the very beginning of Raw and then go and watch Raw. And guess what? That is completely 100% your choice and your right, and you are 100% okay with doing that. So here's where I am with my kind of take on what the outlook of professional wrestling is. Yes, I think we are in the best time ever for professional wrestling, or at least for a long time, but we're also at the same time in the worst time ever for professional wrestling. It seems like this. It just seems like this weird, how are we in the best and the worst time at once? While everything is booming, there's a lot of just negativity surrounding pro wrestling at the moment. And I think that's too much of a stretch to say with how some things are happening. And I'm not just talking about WWE being bad. There's other things in wrestling that are bad. You look at, I think a lot of this is spiraling from last year with Speaking Out, and how a lot of it just kind of was just like it happened. Everyone got really outrageous and defended everything and, oh my God, this is so bad. And 5 minutes later, everyone didn't really give a shit again. And it really kind of that was really where I felt just a bit icky towards pro wrestling. But yeah, my point of view, we're in the best and the worst, and I will get into that in a minute. But Queen, how do you feel about pro wrestling as a whole at the moment?
I feel like I made a lot of adjustments in my fandom and what I choose to participate in and what I choose not to participate in. Last year, post Speaking Out, like you, I saw a lot of the ugly side of this industry rear its head, and not just the industry, but the fans of the industry. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of things and a lot of people that I saw in mutual circles. I was like, oh, cool. True colors. Got it. Mm-hmm. And, and that made me kind of shift a lot of my focus as well. Just a lot of things now that we're in 2021 that should have never been tolerated in the first place. And there have been so many people with their boots on the ground and boots in the ring, not to make a pun, but for real, trying to make change. Yeah. And it's just been falling on people who aren't willing to listen. Yeah. So I thought, okay, well, here we have a moment where women are coming forward, and men in some cases, and some non-binary friends, and they're saying these things and they're being proven to be true. And what's happening? Some of it was immediate response, and I think that's great. There was a lot of pro wrestling companies, especially in the UK, where a lot of this originated from, that took immediate action, and I really appreciate and respect that. But there were a lot of people and a lot of folks, including the biggest company in the world, that didn't take immediate action. And there are still people on their roster that have accusations and such against them. Yep. And some that took forever to release. Yep. So that became a huge problem for me. And it was sort of the nail in the coffin for my WWE fandom in terms of my weekly watching. I didn't want to watch weekly anymore. I got to the point where it was so, I was so angry at it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. So I stopped watching weekly, and I only watch pay-per-views. And that, I will say, has helped me personally have a better viewpoint of WWE, right? So I'm with you on this whole, we're in the best of times and in the worst of times. Because we have on the one hand, we have so much excitement with AEW and the Forbidden Door with New Japan and Impact, and the indie scene is just popping off, and there's so much great stuff. And I think a lot more eyes are on Japanese wrestling, the Joshi wrestling as well. Yeah. And then there's this shift happening with a company that you and I have been fans of for such a long time in our lives. Yeah. And I'm very uncertain about that future, Josh, and it makes me a little nervous about the future of something that we dedicated so much of our love and fandom to. Yeah.
It's the reason we love wrestling.
Lightly.
It's the reason.
Well, I know. It's how I got into wrestling.
And it makes this is why I get so upset over it, is because there's almost a certain level of loyalty to that place, because right. Because when I was 8 years old, I didn't know what wrestling was. I just knew that. I just knew Raw. I knew SmackDown, and that's why we are in the position we are now. But there comes a time where you realize that you need to. I'm not saying that. By the way, I'm not saying that I'm never going to watch WWE again. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just I need to take a little bit of a chill break, because even regardless of all the terrible things that have happened surrounding all of this kind of stuff. Hello, chat. By the way, we got Jesse here, Tyler, Chris. We've got Ed. We got people here. So hello, everyone. We're not ignoring anybody. Even though that we have a lot of this ugly. That aside, creatively right now, they're in a pretty dark spot. It's just a lot of this, like, what's this? And I'm not saying I know how to run a professional wrestling company. Couldn't tell you how. Wouldn't know how. I'm sure it's very difficult, and I'm sure there's some decisions that are being made that are just like, we have to make this decision because of X, Y, and Z. But then there's some other things which I'll get into in a minute. But what I want to touch on here is just saying, like, I'm not saying I'd never say that I'd never watch it again, because there's going to be times where I'm bored and be like, oh, Raw's on, I'll just chuck that on and I'm going to watch it, or whatever it may be. And there's still, listen, again, this is not a knock on any of the talent either, because some of my favorite wrestlers are in WWE, and I'm going to always be like, well, that match seems good, I'm going to check that out, and I'll always support the women, and the women are getting, regardless of what other people think, the women do get more opportunity on a mainstream scale in WWE or NXT, which we'll talk about at length in a minute. But it's just it's a very testing time, and the biggest thing that I'm wanting to do this show was that this is what concerns me a lot, is that, so we had Rampage with Punk coming out, and it just felt this like, and this is coming from me who doesn't watch AEW every single week. This was not a company thing. This was just like, this just feels so real and natural and organic, and there's nothing surrounding it. It's just Punk talking and getting that reaction that you can't put in a bottle, you can't write it down. It's just a very real moment. And that just felt so, I'd watch that over and over and over, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I was never the biggest Punk fan in the world. I'm not saying I didn't like him. I liked him a lot, but it was never my dude. But I liked Punk, but even to get that reaction out of me where I'm just like, holy moly, like, this is so real. And then you go into SummerSlam, and I was like, the card on paper, I was like, this could be a pretty decent show. And that being said, there was a few really good matches at SummerSlam. Edge and Rollins, fantastic match. Roman and Cena, honestly, really, really good match. It picked up in the end.
Better than I thought.
Yeah, way better than I thought. The Triple Threat Raw Women's title match, thought that was really fun. Then on the other side of that is that there was the Becky situation, who we both love Becky Lynch. I can tell you so much. Supersonic, hello, we're doing pretty well. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
It's the Becky situation. We both love Becky. Super excited when that music hit. I was like, oh my God, it's Becky. It's Becky. Like, after over a year, Becky's back, and then beating Bianca very, very fast, who I think is the fastest rising star in professional wrestling, period, regardless of company. That woman is just, and then you just kind of do that and whatever. And then the other things that happened at the show. But my biggest concern with this, and why I wanted to do this, is because I didn't even care enough to be angry. I felt no feeling. And that's a worry. Because if I don't even care enough to give a shit about what is happening next, or what is the future of this, I just don't care. I have no feeling towards it. It didn't make me want to be like, oh my God, I feel so bad for Bianca. I felt bad for Bianca. I felt bad for Becky in this situation too, because it's like, what a weird way to come back and to get everyone on you. But I just didn't care. I felt so neutral. I watched Brock come out, and I was just kind of like, okay, like, here, like, not, and that's, I'm usually excited. I'm like, Brock and Roman at the state that Roman Reigns is, and Brock Lesnar with a ponytail and all. I just didn't care. And I turned off SummerSlam, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go make some food now and be going on with my day. I didn't care enough to watch it back. I didn't care enough to give a shit just to care. And that's a big concern, because I've always, whenever I've tried to step away, I've still cared enough to be angry, or I still cared enough to be like, I want this to be better. I just don't care. I have no feeling.
I don't think you're alone. Because if you watch, well, now they probably edit it to pipe in some noise, but if you remember watching that live, there was a lot of moments of just dead silence. and just kind of like,
A month
what are
back
you
after
guys
getting fans, that's not a
doing?
good look.
That's terrible.
I felt so bad for
And
like someone like Carmella. Carmella was a perfect. I understand it was probably designed to be that way, but like, I don't hate Carmella. I kind of like
no,
Carmella, and like to put her in that situation, I'm like, they're not even caring enough to boo this situation. They're just like,
they're just like, what are
because
you
I think
guys
I think a
doing?
lot of people believe that, you know what, it's probably is going to be Carmella. They're probably not going to give us another replacement because, and this is no disrespect on Carmella, it's just we've seen it
No,
3 or 4 times at this stage, and it's not
you just saw it
SummerSlam.
the night before.
Yeah, you literally saw it on SmackDown.
Literally.
So like, I was just like, I felt bad for everyone involved. I felt
Hmm.
like the crowd didn't even go like, boo, we hate this. Like, oh, give us somebody else. They were just kind of like,
They were like in
I,
disbelief. But I wanted to ask you, thinking about that reaction, or I should say lack thereof reaction, don't you
yeah.
think that's because they were selling us the fact that Sasha and Bianca was happening, even though rampantly all over the internet, they were like, no, 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 no. But up until the match happened, they were showing that package again. And everyone in the
Yeah.
crowd is like, okay, cool. So, like, we know this isn't happening. So, how are you guys going to handle it? And if I'm WWE and CM Punk just debuted at the other company the night before, and I'm going to bring back Becky Lynch, I would handle that so differently.
Okay, I understand. I don't have necessarily a problem with that. Here's why.
Okay.
I don't mind them being like creating this idea that Banks is still going to be there because they don't want you to get, I guess, but then I'm kind of going
Josh,
to
they
contradict.
came on the microphone. Sasha is not going to be competing tonight.
Okay, I think what I'm trying to say is, I mean, in the sense of like, if you say that Sasha's not going to be there, but I mean, Becky is an expectation. So like, it's okay to be like, it's Becky. So I do see what you mean. You could be in this situation of like, Sasha's not going to be here. Who's Bianca going to fight? You could still even bring out Carmella. You could still do that thing and then have Becky come out. I wouldn't do it that way, but you still could if you really want.
But you could have.
You could have.
And it could have been executed better is my point, I think.
Yeah, okay. I do see what you mean. I don't have necessarily a problem with that per se, but I definitely agree with you in that sense of like, it could really be. Becky was using the rock bottom for a little while before she stepped away to have her child. So I like, that wasn't it wasn't even Becky winning. Couldn't give a shit, like, in the sense of like, cool, like Becky's coming back, she's probably going to win. But I think it could have literally been anyone else but Belair, because Belair has just been so, honestly, she's been protected in a company that doesn't protect people. She's been protected. Like, I can count
and
the
celebrated.
Yeah, I can count the number of times on one hand the amount of times she's been pinned since Mania. Since Mania, since Rumble. That's 8 months. That's a long time. Like, that's a long time. But
I know.
It's just, I understand, like, really, at the end of the day, I'm not defending this at all, but anything can be undone for the most part in wrestling. It's just like, why do you need to undo it? You didn't need to do it this way. And I'm not saying they should have had a 15-minute classic. You can still build to them having a better match. But at least a roll-up, at least a fucking roll-up would have been better than her just...
Yeah, and plus Bianca is so strong, and they built her that way. She wouldn't go out like that. And I'm sorry, I don't buy the she was caught off guard story. I just don't. She was ready to fight whomever walked out. Okay, you're going to be that surprised by Becky. She's coming back at some point.
Also, it made...
Even in the fake world, you know what I mean?
And Mella looked like a chump.
It made me so angry.
It made Mella look like a chump. See, that's the problem with them. Here's the problem that I have with WWE. We'll talk about release stuff in a minute, but they're always sacrificing talent that doesn't need to be put in that situation for someone who's already made. Yes. Becky can take falls at this stage and it won't matter because she's Becky Lynch. Like, she is arguably, outside of maybe Cena and stuff like that, she's one of the biggest names in the industry. No offense to anyone in AEW. I don't mean it in a knock to them at all. But she is, you know who Becky Lynch is. She's on the television. You know who that woman 100%. Is. And she doesn't need to be built any further. Yes, okay, she can still win. It's not, I don't have an issue with her being the champion.
It's not about her winning. It's not about her winning.
It's the way that it happened.
You know what it is? It's the way that it happened.
Yeah.
Because if you think back to how Kofi Kingston lost his championship, it's the exact same thing.
And it happens time and time again, and we
Why?
Yeah, why
Becky
we
doesn't
shouldn't have
need
to be in
that.
that situation. It's like, okay, yes, you can build a. That's not the point. She'll be fine come SmackDown. Something will happen and she'll be fine. However, you shouldn't need to be put in these
Right.
situations where she needs to be
No.
made fine. It's just. The problem is
And
that no one
yeah.
is allowed to get. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
No one is allowed to grow in that company, and no one is allowed to organically become better versions of themselves because it's so micromanaged. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's the problem.
Way too many.
I don't think the problem everyone's like, it's Vince. I don't think it is honestly just Vince. I think it's the people surrounding him because at one stage or another, whether we want to admit it or not, people have a lot of ill feelings towards Vince, and that's fine. But it did create this. This is his whole creation, and I think too many people are now surrounding him being like, but Vince, do it this way. And then he goes, oh yeah, maybe. And then it's like too many people are telling him. And then you've got Nick Khan. Everyone probably seen my thread about Nick Khan yesterday and that company yesterday. But I think he is a businessman, and to be honest, he's probably a very good businessman, which means he's a very bad person for the professional wrestling industry. So, it's just too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the sauce. Correct. That's exactly what I meant. And there's just a lot happening in that company behind the scenes, creatively, that is just going on. WWE are in a very big state of flux where it's in a very big change. And the WWE as we know it is never going to be like that again. And that just kind of rolls into NXT and what it's doing to NXT, which again, this isn't a knock on AEW. Please don't take it this way, anybody. I'm not taking it this way at all. But before AEW was cool, or before AEW was even a thing, NXT was AEW in a sense. It was the alternative. It was what everybody was clamoring for and being like, this. It showed that WWE can still produce professional wrestling, because NXT to me was always more professional wrestling than the entertainment show. It still had blends of it, like all professional wrestling, but it had that. We had from 2012, well, when it got hot in 2014, when it really started to get hot, and then up until whatever, when everyone wants to say it got stale. But it was hot. It was the hot property. It was where everybody wanted to be. We got all the indie stars there. We got all the people coming over and being like, I want to wrestle in NXT. And then it just kind of shifted, and we're at this place now where they're now revamping.
Sure.
The only thing that I considered not fantastic, but great on a week-to-week basis was NXT. And now we're in this. We don't know what the revamp is, right? We can't speak for that yet because we haven't seen it. It might be great. We don't know. I have very big quotation marks around that, but we don't know, so we can't judge it until we see it in the next few weeks. But you're taking away something that I love about the only thing that I'm watching on a consistent basis, wrestling-wise, in period, was NXT. And now I'm like, I need to find something else, if anything at all, because I really don't know if this is just burning me out to the point where I'm like, I just don't care enough about wrestling anymore, to be completely honest. I don't know if I do to watch it on a week-to-week basis where I'm like, I have to watch this show. Which sucks because I've watched wrestling for 21 years of my life. My whole life, I've watched wrestling pretty much, and I've never stopped. And I'm in this state now where I'm like, I'm not going to watch Raw today. I don't really I haven't watched Raw for months, to be completely honest, on a consistent basis. Yeah. But it is like, it's like it's like someone is breaking up with you when you're not ready to be broken up with. You're like, wait, but I'm still in love with you. I don't know what's going on here. And the other person just doesn't like you anymore. It sounds dramatic, but that's how it feels. Like, it feels like NXT was my partner, and they're like, fuck you, I'm done here. And it's like, but I'm not ready for you to go, and I don't think you're in a stage where you needed to leave yet. I really didn't think that's where we were. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
It's weird, and it's how do you feel before we move on to other things? What's your take on NXT? I probably summed it up pretty well in a sense, but what do you think about this whole revamp of NXT?
Like, listen, if you're thinking about it from a purely business standpoint, like, okay, cool. It's not getting as much ratings.
Yeah,
it's not
I understand
doing what
it.
you wanted it to do, whatever. Fine. Change is inevitable.
It happens.
It happens. However, I think the problem with NXT in terms of its inception, when I had this great conversation with Mags, Tanner, and Ray about this, and essentially, did NXT fail? Was the question that we started, and I ended up coming to this conclusion of like, you know, NXT was made to create stars for the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
What NXT actually did was become a viable third brand to make moves lateral as opposed to moving up.
Yeah.
And they're clinging to this idea that NXT should just be developmental when it is so much more than that now. So for me, it's like if I were doing it and I had the reins and control, I would make NXT the third option.
Because it was organic.
Because it was organic and it happens and people love it.
If it wasn't being, if you were being force fed that it was the third brand, when you had this idea that it was developmental, then turn around and go, well, this isn't working and you're not doing what I told you to, what it was set out to do. I even understand in the sense of like from the head honcho's kind of zone, I understand to be like, you're not doing what I originally intended you to do. You're developmental. You are not the third brand. But this is the whole problem with WWE.
The fans took over.
Something became organic, and they're like, that's not what we told you to happen, so it's not happening. Therefore, we're taking it away. And that's a problem there.
It is. They had lightning in a bottle, and it blew up, and it created started from there into Raw and SmackDown to create the Women's Evolution. And, all these things came about because of NXT. So, if it were me, I would make that viable third brand, and I would have the Performance Center become developmental to funnel the stars into either of those three. I think they're making a mistake by turning it back into its original intention. And I think that that's a real huge misstep. It's taking away a lot of what people love about NXT. And I think that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's it really is, because it was showing us that they still can listen. Don't WWE say that they want to be able to go to any demographic, they want to catch any fan. Yes, okay. Wrestling fans are a smaller portion of what watch WWE, and that's fine.
Right.
But you're not catering to us, so therefore you're losing a portion of your fans, right? But that's only, I'm not basing that off my head. That's what they're saying. That's what they're telling us. So therefore you're not capturing a portion of your audience. But that's how we feel about NXT and all that. And I will say that my biggest concern is always going to be the women, because that's what I care about the most. What I will say is that a higher succession rate of women going to the main roster does work out better than the percentage of the male talent that works on the main roster. But that's not to say that they're not going to change how they develop the women and who they search for in terms of the women, because I don't think we're going to get a lot of those indie. There's still a lot, but I mean, there is a bigger playing field for women in wrestling. All thanks to NXT, all thanks to them.
Yeah.
It trickles down. The biggest company in the world, it trickles down to the rest of the industry to be like, okay, women are worth more. Women have got more equity and more value, so therefore we have to book them more. We have to pay them more, which is a whole nother fucking issue. But it's
don't have time for that one today.
No, we don't have time for that one. But it trickles down. So as a result of NXT, it's made the women's wrestling on a mainstream scale bigger. So it's just the whole thing. But let's shift over to AEW at the moment, because while WWE are doing all of this and they're in kind of a state of like, what the hell, AEW are doing a lot of good. However, you know what's coming, and you know I'm going to talk about this with you because it's on my brain. Every time I've watched Dynamite, every time I've watched an AEW pay-per-view, every time I've watched Rampage, the 2 episodes that have been on, I've enjoyed it. And I'm like, this is really good. You're signing huge male talent. You're signing all these people, and you're bringing in a lot of buzz to professional wrestling. You're making it feel cool again. You're making it not feel like, ugh. But my problem is that they have a lot of talented women, and they aren't getting equal time. They aren't getting equal opportunity. And to be honest with you, the times I have tuned into Dynamite, they're not really impressing me because they're getting 4 minutes and it means nothing. That Thunder Rosa and Penelope Ford match last week on Dynamite, was that last? Yeah, I watched it last week.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason to care. And I don't mean that as a knock on the talent. I just didn't feel like it meant anything. It didn't mean it. Why is this happening? Like, there was no explanation. the crowd interest was a lot less, I noticed, because I was watching the show and I'm like, oh, the girls, like, here we go. And it's the one match they get on Dynamite, the literal one match, and it's shorter. It didn't mean as much. There was nothing to it. And that's my problem I have with AEW. And again, it's not a knock on they have a lot of talented women. They don't have a lot of names. And I feel like the distance between Britt and a lot of the other roster is very big, the gap between her. And I just want more opportunity. And the times they have got to kill it, like the Lights Out match, and they've had good, I'm not saying they haven't produced good matches, they have, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of follow-up with it. And that's my biggest problem, because they have a lot of stuff going on Dynamite. It's a very fast-paced show. There's a lot happening. And I understand time and stuff like that in a 2-hour show is sometimes minimal. I get that. But the ratio to men on the screen to women on the screen, and then when the women are on the screen, it's not really meaning much outside of just them two wrestling. It kind of gutters me a little bit, because I'm like, this is my only gripe I have with this, and I want to attach myself to this, and I want you to tell me to watch this every week, but it's just not being presented that way to me. And I could be wrong. Some people may feel very differently, and that's completely fine. But to me, who is 100% all in on the women, if I only watched the women of wrestling, it wouldn't bother me. That's my favorite part of wrestling. And it's just not, there's something missing from it. There is something missing. And I just want some more equality within it, because it's not quite there yet. And I know they can get there. Again, talented roster. And I think signing some people with name value, I think a Ruby Soho would be wonderful for that division. Mercedes Martinez, wonderful for that division. Even a CJ Perry, Lana, would add something else, because they have a lot of wrestlers and they don't have a lot of characters within that. And I think that's a big problem, is the lack of character development. It's just, for someone like me who doesn't watch a lot of indie wrestling, you're expected to know this instead of being told. You're not going to gain a different audience if you don't tell me who's, like, why should I know who Thunder Rosa is? Why should I know who Penelope Ford is? It takes 15 seconds just to explain to me who this is. And again, a little bit is on me because I'm not watching every single week. However, it's not really being presented that way. Is that a fair criticism? And again, I'm not trying to shit on it.
I think the women's division has been a problem since the first day. And I say that being a huge AEW fan.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of promises and things said by Cody and Kenny, and things have not been delivering.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of women on their roster. A lot of them are very green,
Mm-hmm.
not in terms of wrestling. There are a lot of those too, but green in terms of television.
Mm-hmm.
Not many of them have television experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you look at the male roster with a lot of their more, I would say, indie talent, there's still a plethora now with all of these signings of folks, men who have been on television, who have been on weekly programming and know what to do. And I think AEW, now that it has gotten so much bigger and has been like snowballing and getting so much more eyes and ears on it, and getting a lot more people talking, they need to kind of step up their game in terms of people who are going to tune into you for the first time, let's say, might not know who Thunder Rosa is, who's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world.
Yeah.
How would you know that if you've never seen her before? And like NWA champion Serena Deeb, like that, you would know her from NWA, right, when she was champion, but you might not know her now.
Yeah.
You might not know who she is, or you've never watched NWA and you have no idea who she is. She's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that if you're not going to tell them. And I think the other problem is the broadcast team. Excalibur is the only person on the broadcast team who understands and knows indie wrestling, because that was his background.
Yeah.
You have JR, and JR's JR, and Tony Schiavone fills a very specific role. And he's besties with Britt Baker, who,
Mm-hmm.
Not a WWE person, right? That's a homegrown AEW girl,
100%.
indie girl. So there's that, but there's a lot of unknowns. And I think AEW, especially in the beginning, relied a lot on their fan base who had been following their YouTube programming, being the elite.
Mm-hmm.
That explains a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it fed some of the program decisions. And now they have AEW Dark Elevation on Mondays, AEW Dark on Tuesdays, of course, which has been around longer.
Yeah.
And now they have Rampage. And I think they need to kind of remind folks on their announce team that they have a lot more eyes on them now, and they're going to need to kind of reintroduce, even though To them, it's reintroduction, but to others, it'll be an introduction.
Yeah.
And I think with the women, the biggest problem is their lack of equality, lack of TV time. Now, it could be blamed on a lot of different things. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say what I think. I think Cody Rhodes put himself on TV for way too long. And I think that part of that was necessary, and part of it wasn't. A lot of his stuff took so many minutes out of that show. Some of it really great. Some of it didn't need to last that long and took minutes away from the women's matches they had.
Because now, I feel like with AEW, the first place they take from with time is the ladies. Always.
Of course, easily. Right. And I'm not just blaming Cody Rhodes. It's just the thing that comes to my mind in the first place, especially at the beginning, because he was the poster boy for AEW. Yep. He was on weekly television, which, isn't necessarily a wrong decision.
No.
Right? But when that's what you do and you choose not to put your women on for a couple minutes longer,
it adds up, though, because you got to think that there's Cody Rhodes. Chris Jericho was getting a lot of time, probably by design. Right. You probably needed to have Chris Jericho.
By design.
Jericho. Then you've got the Bucks. Then you've got Adam Page.
And
then
Kenny.
You've got
and
Kenny.
Page.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there's an hour and 10 minutes. We have 15 minutes to fill of this show. Let's throw in a women's match that means literally nothing. That's my biggest concern. My biggest concern isn't that, okay, it's a big concern that they're not getting an equal amount of time, or at least an equal amount of opportunity, but they're not even getting the 4 minutes to matter. You can have 30 seconds. You can have 30 seconds on a show, but you can make 30 seconds memorable. It doesn't take long to create a moment.
Always says.
Exactly.
That's right. You
grab
can
a
have
microphone.
30 seconds or 3 minutes.
He said that in every WCW promo. He said,
absolutely
Eric, can I have a minute to talk tonight? You got 30 seconds. That's 30 seconds where the camera's on you. Make it count. But they're just not, there's not any substance to it. Britt is fantastic. I absolutely love Britt Baker. And there's women on the roster that I really do like. I'm like, I like you. Jade, fantastic. Very green, and it's going to take some time, but she's very good. There's people on the women's roster that I'm like, you're very good. But to the masses, there's no names. There is no names on that roster. Why? I know Mickie James is doing other things, but there's a door, and I would like to see someone like Mickie James is a phenomenal name, and she could be someone that kind of leads into and giving you some more opportunity for the women because you've got someone like Mickie James.
Well, maybe she will,
but you never know. I'm not saying that she won't, but I'm just saying that why aren't we, as soon as someone gets released or as soon as someone is available from wherever company they are, if they're a dude, AEW seems to be like, we're snapping them up for the most part. Not everybody, but I'm just saying we're like, you look at Miro and you look at Punk. I mean, Punk is probably a different example, but there's a lot of people that they're snapping up. But
Malachi Black.
Yeah, there has not been a single WWE release who has name value that's been signed. No? Am I making that up?
I mean, the women, not so much.
That's what I mean, for the women, not for the men. They've signed a lot.
Right. I just think that the real issue is they have to decide what they want to do with this women's division. They need to either keep it as it is, which the majority of people seem to be fine with. I'll be honest.
And I hate that. There was a comment on my thing yesterday. I'm like, the amount of men that are low-key a little sexist when it comes to wrestling, because that's always the way it was done, is fucking bullshit to me. I'm like,
I know.
It's done.
I hear you. But that needs to come from the top.
Yes.
They have to make the viable effort to be the program that they say they're going to be, which is inclusive and of all genders and races and everything. Then you need to put your money where your mouth is.
Yes, it's easy to say
I will say things have gotten better.
Yeah,
things
I
have
agree.
gotten better. However, I see women more on AEW Dark Elevation and AEW Dark than I do on your Wednesday main show. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem.
I don't have time to watch all of that wrestling. And I think a lot of us don't. I'm not watching 16 matches in 2 hours. I'm sorry, I'm not. It's not something that I like to do. And it's not something I'm going to, for lack of a better term, waste my time on. I have other things that I like to do in my week. And I just don't, I watch less wrestling than I ever have. I'm only looking to watch 1 or 2 wrestling programs on a weekly basis every single week. And I want Dynamite to be one of them because, like I said, every time I've watched Dynamite, it's a great show. It's just
a great show.
But I can't,
really is a great show.
For my fandom and for me, I can't get as invested in it because of the women. And I just want to. So you can hear it in my voice. I want to so badly. But until that happens, I can't attach myself to this. I can't.
Yeah, I think like sometimes, and this is said with all the love because I really do love AEW, but I think sometimes they rely on things like Cody heavily. Not so much now because he's not on weekly really much anymore. He's very busy with other things.
Yeah.
But they relied a lot on Cody. They relied a lot on Chris at the beginning, and they're relying a lot now on Sting. And like Sting's great. Don't get me wrong.
Love
but
Sting.
Do I need to see him every week? No, I
this
don't.
This isn't like a we hate men situation. I am a man.
Not.
I have a
it's
penis.
Really not.
I obviously love men, but
right. I love weekly AEW TV though, Josh. I love it. I'll watch every 2 hours. I'm very, very happy.
I can tell you love
it. The only thing I wish is that the girls had a little more.
It's my only gripe. It's literally my only.
It's the only thing I don't like.
It's the only thing that's keeping me from diving in, and I don't think I'll just speak from my point of view. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing that I want it to be better. And every time I've talked about the AEW women's division, I have said it so constructively. I'm not shitting on it at all. I think they're very talented. It's not it's not a women problem here. It's not those women that are wrestling problem.
It's just a structure problem.
It's a structure problem. It's completely from the head honcho. And we know how that company works. When people say that people surrounding Vince, yeah, sure, there's people surrounding Tony. But Tony seems like a very in-tune guy. At least from what I've seen of him, he seems pretty in tune with what's going on. And he seems to be, at the end of the day, the person who is up top. And at the end of the day, he makes the decisions. He's the one signing these people. He's the one signing those checks, in a sense. He's the one he's the boss. He's the man. He's the head honcho. So it needs to come from a top perspective. And I think, like you said, with Kenny saying especially Kenny saying a lot of things, and obviously he's a big advocate for the women, which is fantastic. But almost him saying things like, we're going to give more time to women, we're going to do this, blah, 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 is making it worse.
None of it happens, and it's making it worse.
Because I want to, as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh my God, okay. And then I watch Dynamite, and I get 4 minutes of nothing, of literally nothing. It's just nothing is happening. Britt has a promo at some point in the show, which is fantastic. I think Britt Baker is, like, my God, the leap she's made in a year and a half, 2 years is so ridiculous. Like, what a talent. So over just everything about her. But the problem is that they've built literally nobody is on Britt's level right now. And that's a problem. That's a big problem because they don't have enough time to develop. Again, I know, like you said, they're on Dark Elevation.
But that's not your
I'm not watching
show.
that.
That's my problem. Yeah. I'm not watching that. You have million people watching on Wednesdays, about that number
in the
every
US
week.
Just in the US.
In
you
the
think
US,
of, think of the international.
Never mind globally.
Yeah.
It's not the same on your YouTube. So I think they just need to make a decision. They have the available talent. I really think they need veteran women to come in and help with the in-ring as much as the camera.
And not just inside in front of the camera, behind the scenes as well. I think they need a few producer type women or whatever they have there to help.
Absolutely.
Like a Medusa. Why aren't you using Medusa? She has been openly said on socials, on her Twitch streams, that she's like, I want to work within the profession. I want to make it better. And I know she's helping out with NWA, with Empower, which is this weekend, by the way. So I hope everyone's going to go and watch NWA Empower because it actually looks quite stellar with the amount of women they got on there. But why aren't you using that? The Forbidden Door is open. Gail Kim is available. Mickey James is available.
I mean, but how many? I don't know. We don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know what they're saying or what they're doing. I don't know what the actual problem is. And every time, like, you know, a lot of folks go on their press calls and ask about the women. It's a lot of vague answers.
Ella said,
I just don't understand why that is. Yeah, Ella J and my friend Kristen Ashley said the same thing.
They were like, we talked about the women for maybe 3 minutes of this hour and a half long media scrum, and it's like, what?
What's the point of that?
What? I don't understand why. And I'm not saying that WWE they're obviously not doing everything better. But one thing they are doing, well, maybe not so much, like, with how SummerSlam was booked. I mean, but like, at least in the sense of like they present a lot of their
women's matches on NXT, but you know, like,
well, at the moment,
SmackDown's wrestling time was the same amount of time that AEW Rampage had wrestling on. It's a disaster. And NXT, I mean,
We don't know
yeah,
what's
they've
going
had
on.
women's matches, but like their women are like tied up doing other things. Io Shirai and Zoe Stark are a tag team. They're not really showcasing the tag division as much as
They're
they
not.
used to. They're not at all. And Indy is with Dexter Lumis, which has been a great storyline. Candice is pregnant. Congrats, but that takes her out of the picture.
Yeah.
And then you have Raquel, who is a disaster in the ring as your champion, and you just beat the only real viable.
You got
challenger.
Kaylee Ray coming in, and I understand there's.
Yeah, but that was different.
Yeah,
like
that was
before
different.
she came in, what do we have right now? The women's division in NXT used to be so good and so hot, and in the past 4 months, I feel like where did they all go? Like what happened?
A lot of them have been plucked away, and like then they take people away.
Moved,
they take them away or released, and releases is what we'll kind of wrap this show up on for the last 10 minutes or so, and talk about the releases. Okay, first and foremost is that, I mean, they suck. The people are losing their jobs, which is not fun. However, I am at least, the other part of me is like, okay, let them go flourish somewhere else.
Sure,
there's been a lot of talent. Not everyone can go to certain places and stuff like that. I understand that. Right. But I know you know exactly who I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about him because it was really like a bit of a nail for me, being like, okay, Peyton and Billy, Jess and Cass.
Yeah.
They got released, and obviously that's a blow to me. They're my favorite people in wrestling. So this is personally biased, but whatever. Peyton, I understand. Peyton was not on screen. I get it. You're not using that talent. They obviously got more to give. It's okay for releases happen in any company. I don't think it should be happening in a pandemic, but regardless of, take that away, releases happen. It's a part of wrestling. That's okay.
Sure.
But Billie Kay was on WrestleMania. So you're telling me for the last 4 months that she was on screen, and again, she wasn't getting a lot of time, but she was on there every week, being like resume.
And she made the most of her time.
But you're telling me to get invested in a character, and then the very next week, they're gone. So how am I meant to get invested in any of these characters when they're releasing people like Braun Strowman, who I thought was a WWE talent for life? He is what in our eyes, what Vince McMahon, the hourglass that's exactly what. But Braun Strowman, a former Universal Champion, like getting released.
In a program, an active program, challenging for the title, Josh, gone.
How? And we're not even the biggest Braun Strowman people in the world.
No, I don't like Braun Strowman at all.
But like
but on a and I don't like him.
But like on a level of talent he was to go.
Right.
Like, I understand some of the talent. Chelsea Green, for example, okay? A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, Chelsea.
That makes sense.
But, like, she was injured a lot. She wasn't on TV. Okay, release her. Go let her do other things. I'm not mad in the sense of, like, them releasing people that they weren't using. It's the people that they were using on a consistent basis. Right. And then I'm like, what is going on? Like, so Billie Kay is just the example I'm using just because she was on WrestleMania. She was challenging for a title. I believe she got a win in that gauntlet match. And then 4 days later, she's gone. And she was in a tag team. She was in a program with Mella. It's so odd. But it is kind of like this weird feeling now where I'm like, no talent outside of like your John Cena's, your Roman Reigns are a WWE talent forever now. WWE is not the end-all be-all. It's also another thing that people won't like me saying is that it's okay when a talent does go to WWE because for a lot of people, they want their Mania moment. And there's nowhere else you can get that. I understand that. But it's okay. Yeah, let them have it. Let them make money. I don't think people are like, oh my God, like, oh, it's WWE talent. They're dead for life now. It's like, let them make their money. Like, at the end of the day, that's what I want for performers, is to be healthy and to make money. So whatever. But that being said, WWE is not the end all be all. And there's other places you can go. And that doesn't mean going to AEW either. It doesn't mean you have to go to AEW. There's a thriving industry outside of AEW, of WWE. But it is like you're getting invested in these talents and then they're just gone. Like even like, why can't I blank on this? Tyler Rust in the Diamond Mine. He was literally in a group that just debuted and then he's gone. Was it Tyler Rust? Is that who was in it?
Bobby Fish.
Well, Bobby Fish is another
in Diamond Mine, yes.
Diamond Mine.
But like he was in a program and facing with Bobby Fish. And
literally the two people in the program, and the next week they're just gone. And it's like,
and Bronson Reed, who was just her North American champion.
I think Nick Khan hates Australia.
Who did your damn commentary for WrestleMania, and you let him go. And Triple H is like, you did what? Like, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Who's talking to who? Who lets Samoa Joe go?
Mickey James. How do you fire Mickey James? How do you
don't know.
fire
It's
Mickie James? Like, she is
I
a.
put her stuff in a trash bag.
I think they put everyone's stuff in a trash bag, but I am glad
I
Mickie.
can't.
I'm glad Mickie actually said something, and
Called them out.
she. Do you know what the best thing about her being released is? Obviously, outside of her going and doing other things. Obviously, outside of going and doing that, is that Mickie James has done 2 runs in WWE. She doesn't need. There's no unfinished business. It's just like, I don't care if I never go back there again. It doesn't matter. So she's allowed to speak her truth.
Her
and
mind.
And a lot of people don't like that because a woman isn't allowed to speak her truth because she's a bitch if she does that. Shut your mouth, you know.
Standard.
I mean, but if a man does that, it's completely fine, which I can't stand that kind of bullshit. But anyway, that again, different topic for a different day. But there's just a lot of people at the end of the day, the industry is thriving outside of WWE right now. It really is. And we're ready for, I think we're not ready for it. We're in the middle of a shift in professional wrestling because I think in 2, 3, 4, 5, even 10 years' time, it's not the short term that is going to affect WWE. They'll be fine. They're always going to be fine in a sense of like they're a money-making juggernaut. They're going to make money.
Sure.
The rest of they decide to. But the long-term effects of all of these talent going in, and we're seeing long-term effects of them hoarding talent too, to be completely honest. It's all catching up to them. It's all catching up to them and being like, uh-oh, we have all this talent. Now what? We have to release them. And it just makes them look bad all the way around because you hoarded talent. Then you let them go in a mass style in multiple releases, which we're not at the end of, folks. It's going to be
in the middle of a pandemic.
In the middle of a
companies
pandemic
with less of a budget kept everyone working.
Exactly. So
ridiculous.
It's just a whole mess. It's a whole ass mess. But on the other side of this, for me, I'm looking for that next kind of thing. I'm finally at this point where I'm like, I just don't care enough. Again, I'm not going to say I'm never watching it again. It's not going to be the case. I'm always going to be like, I want to watch this match, and there's certain talent that I just love that I'm like, I'm going to check out their shit. But I just can't watch it on a weekly basis at the moment anymore because it's just not working. I just don't care enough to watch it. But all in all, I guess the wrapping this up for me in a bubble is that I like what I'm seeing over on the other program on AEW. I want more time for the women. Until that happens, I can't get invested. But until then, for me, it's just like basically just opening my wings and being like, okay, what's this? What's this? I've started to try and watch Stardom. It's not really for me. At the end of the day, I don't think it is for me. There's a lot of talent there. But you know what I love in wrestling, Queen. We've had many conversations is that outside of the women, I do love entertainment style wrestling, and AEW gives me enough of that where I'm like, okay, that's getting that. And I love story. I love a story. It's a storytelling match. I've always said I prefer a great story over a great match. I love both, but I prefer that great story. So I am getting that feel in AEW, but I'm just not getting my women's wrestling feel there. But I can still go and seek out other places. But I don't know. It's just I'm in a weird kind of zone with wrestling at the moment where maybe it is just time to have a little bit of a zone out with it completely. I don't know. Just to kind of recharge my own batteries and see if I care enough to go, oh, I really want to watch this. Because sometimes you do need to kind of get away from something to go,
sure, is
this for me anymore? Because I've watched it for a long time and maybe it's just time to just limit my time with it. I don't know. But my plan is this week, I'm obviously not going to watch Raw. That's starting in a minute. Not that I was really watching it every week anyway, but no. I'm going to go and do my other things. I'm going to watch Dynamite this week and see what I'm getting. Maybe Tony Khan is listening to this right now and he's gone, maybe I do need to do something, but we don't know. But All Out's in a few weeks, is it?
It is.
September 5th or something like that, I believe it is. So that'll be fun. Yes. I always love their pay-per-views. Their pay-per-views are a lot of fun. Yes. So, yeah, I'm going to try and dip my toe into that and a little bit more and see if I can get heavily invested in that. But it's just, yeah, it's kind of this weekend is weirdly, not that even SummerSlam was the worst show I've ever seen. I've seen a lot worse than SummerSlam. A lot worse, like ridiculous amounts worse than SummerSlam. But for some reason, I just sat there and just was neutral on the whole thing. And that
I was so upset.
It was just so concerning because I was like, I didn't even care enough to be angry or upset or anything. I just feel bland. And that's never a good feeling. You're like, uh-oh, that's not good. But how would you sum up everything that we've kind of talked about today? What's your kind of outlook on wrestling? I mean, we're in two very different states, but...
I know. Well, I think, there's a lot of great stories in AEW, and I know they don't really have the women, but there's so much great storytelling happening and long-term storytelling, which is just so refreshing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. GCW and a couple other indie promotions are just absolutely slaying everything. And if you don't know who Effie is, honey, get on
Platinum
board.
blonde
Wrestling
hair
is
Effie, by the
gay.
way, is...
Oh my God, so hot.
What the hell is this? I seen it the other day and I was like, what? What's going on here?
And now Jake Atlas is like going at him and stuff. It's fabulous. Anyway, so there's so many things out there that are absolutely fantastic. For me, I'm not surprised by WWE. In fact, I'm like done a little bit. Like I'll watch the major pay-per-views and stuff.
I'll always watch the Rumble and Manias.
Yeah,
even
always. Of course. They're my favorites.
That's the best.
Right. But I don't care to watch weekly. And if they gut NXT, like I just won't watch it. I won't watch it. I don't like what they're doing with the women right now. I'm super disappointed. It's like, it's not giving me what I wanted from NXT anymore. Like those were great matches, but that last night, Josh, was the end of an era. And as you can see, I'm fully Bullet Clubbed and AEW out because I'm ready for Adam Cole to rise from the dead because he was killed, of course, on Being the Elite 4 years ago. And he, of course, is also with Dr. Britt Baker.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
They're together.
What? By the way, what a dude Adam Cole is, by the way, for...
What a dude.
He could have been like, bye, I'm out of here. My contract's up. But that just says something about... I respect that in a sense, being like, NXT's treated me very well, and I'm willing to finish out this story and take a loss on my way out. I know he couldn't be like, I'm not losing, but he could have easily been like, I'm the hottest thing in wrestling right now. I'm going to leave. But he was like, no, I'm going to see my story through. You've been very good to me. And he seemed to be very happy in NXT. I'm not saying, and we don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We really don't know what's happening with him. I think he's going to AEW, but we don't know.
I think so too. But I mean, listen, he could take a very lucrative contract in the E, and that's also fine.
Make your money, friend. Make your money. Fucking money.
But also, like, if I'm Adam Cole and I'm looking at what happens to major superstars from NXT, like Finn Balor, for example, I'm looking very closely at that career and going, is that something that I'm willing to dedicate my time and that's what I get? Or am I willing to go back to the places where I began and wrap
still
up
make
storylines, still make money,
Yeah.
fight new people I've never wrestled before, and and maybe meet Bryan Danielson in the ring under a completely new.
I did notice something.
Moniker.
Oh, we do have to actually say this. Nikki Bella had some comments.
Oh,
I think she had a few glasses.
Can we end on this? Can we end on this?
Yeah, I did think that Nikki Bella had a few glasses of wine, but honey, you go off. You can do what you want. You're
I was like,
new mum.
Sis.
I was like, Nikki Bella, they asked her, so for context, basically she was having an interview at the SummerSlam after party. She was with her brother or some bullshit, but they said, Nikki, what was your favorite moment of SummerSlam? And she just goes, well, and you see, you know when a lady gives you that look, you go, oh no, something like sis is about to spill some tea. And she looked at the interview and she said, I know what wasn't my favorite moment, and pointed, Belair was obviously next to her and said, when she lost, because when you have a championship that means so much lost in seconds, I'm paraphrasing, it just makes you go, nothing at SummerSlam was truly my favorite moment or something like that. I was like, that is listen, the Bellas.
A WWE girl.
That is
through.
That is a WWE talent. A WWE talent, a Hall of Famer, by the way. WWE Hall of Famer openly saying at a WWE branded after party saying, fuck you.
Yep.
And she's speaking from experience.
She's not wrong.
She's speaking from experience. She said, I posted in that thing, she had there was an interview from a Comic-Con years ago about how they were meant to have 10, 15 minutes with her and AJ, and they got to Gorilla and they said, you've got 30 seconds. Good luck. And Brie was like, so what about my story with Nikki? They were meant to wrap it up the next night. They were in the Bella versus Bella thing. And they went, and she was told by the producer, yeah, we're not going to do that now. You're just going to be with Nikki again. And she's like, oh, cool. Cool. So it's like Nikki, listen, I know Queen. The Queen loves me to bits. She knows how much I stan the Bella twins, but Nick, you are not a Bella twin stan in the slightest.
not a stan. I like them for what they are, and I appreciate them for what they've done.
But like you were like
Nikki Bella way more than Brie.
You were like, girl, you've never been more of my sister there, right? Fucking now.
That's right. I was like, go off, sis. Say more, Nikki, not say less. Say more.
Nikki, and I seen like, and the internet does not like the Bellas, but I seen like, damn, Nikki speaking fucking fire, like fire. Also,
I love it.
It is. Well, actually, before I say the little point here, so other than just loving it, were you just like, oh my God, I'm agreeing with Nikki Bella right now?
Partially, but mostly I was shocked she said it, because if anybody was going to say anything, I never thought it would be her, right? They are such like, we love WWE and we love this, everything's great, and blah, 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 wave the flag. And she was just like, she did a Bianca, honey, She
was like,
she just straight out.
And her brother's face, he was like,
oh. He was just like, can you do that? Are you allowed to do that? That's how I felt listening to her. I'm like, are you allowed to say this? This is fantastic.
She didn't care. I think she did have a few glasses of red wine, like I said, but who cares?
Good for her.
Live your life. She's just had a baby not all that long.
Tell it like
about a
it
year
is,
ago now,
honey. Tell it like it is. Just she's not wrong.
Her and Brie are both like that. They're both like, we love WWE and whatever. They're probably contracted, so who gives a fuck? They can say if they're getting their money, whatever. But like I would assume there's probably going to be a conversation with somebody about that. I don't think they would be very happy.
I'm sure her stepdaddy will be giving her a call.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a release. Who knows if they're under? We're sorry.
Can you imagine? I would die.
Oh my God. But I did notice something. We spoke about Bryan Danielson. Notice who wasn't there with Nikki. Was Brie, because I think she would have got hammered by interviewers on questions about her husband. So I think probably 100%. Like. I'll just hit this one. Yeah, noticeably absent. It's very interesting to say, because wherever Nikki is, Brie is usually to follow, but it seems like she got a replacement Bella for the night in her brother.
Did. She got the other Bella.
So that's I'm not saying because Brie Bella is going to show up in AEW. I'm saying because someone else associated. Maybe soon though, if WWE don't like the Bellas, they might be like, you're fucking out of here. So they're like, fuck you.
Can you imagine if the Bella twins showed up in AEW?
They would get heat, but it would be good heat, and they have name value. So like, maybe that will show up on Total Bellas one day. Who fucking knows? AEW on Total Bellas. Well, you never thought you'd see that. But I mean, we thought CM Punk was never going to come back. So I'll never ever say never in wrestling ever again.
Never ever again.
Ever. Yep. Because what the hell? But yeah, what a weird way to end this on Nikki Bella speaking some fire. I'm like, I've never been more happy to be a Bella Twin stan than right now. I'm like, suck it, everyone, eat dirt.
Can I be real with you though, real quick?
Yeah.
One of the reasons I didn't like Nikki Bella is because I watched that relationship play out with her and John on Total Divas and Total Bellas, and I was like, girl, get out. Get out.
It was silly. Honey, I was like, get out. But I guess when you see something from the outside, you're like,
I know. It's none of my business. But it's a reality TV show.
Actually, so it is your business because it's on television. So it is your business. So they put it out there. I don't know whether a lot of it is reality TV, but at the end of the day, I'm like, what are you doing? He's not giving you what you want, and you obviously want other things.
Stop compromising for no man.
Yeah. I don't care if it's John Cena. I don't care if it's John Cena.
Care who it is?
It's like
now magically he wants to have kids now. Did you hear that?
Oh yeah, isn't that funny?
Here we go.
Isn't that funny? And now seems to be with someone that makes her happy. So that's
I'm very happy for them. God bless. Live your life. I'm just saying. And part of that like soured me. I should have never watched it.
Oh,
then I was like,
trashy TV. Oh, I mean, you could go on a rant about trashy TV because you love it. So like, it's just the best thing ever. But someone that will make me very happy one day is when I marry Daniel Garcia.
I mean,
why? I don't know why I'm so attracted. Yes, of course.
Okay, great.
I don't know why I'm so attracted to that man, but I'm like, damn, go off, Daniel. I don't know if it's his voice or just like I don't know what it is.
He's got a little an aura about him.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why, but I'm like, I'll watch Rampage. I'll watch that for a little while. Main eventer too. Making that main event money, Go off, Daniel.
Get
it. But yeah, to wrap it up, we love wrestling and we want wrestling to thrive and we think it is thriving. And yeah, I mean, I can't really say too much more than that because I just want wrestling to be wonderful and fantastic, and I know it can be fantastic, and just
Yeah.
let's just love wrestling. But we're just in a very I guess transitional would be the word, maybe transitional time for
unknown, a
wrestling.
lot of unknown.
Yeah, just a little bit of like a what is actually going on in professional wrestling
Yes.
right now, because we're honestly not sure. But that's gonna wrap us up here on this random little state of wrestling address. But we are gonna raid somebody. Let me see. We might go raid. Let's see. We'll go and raid Tom. He's watching Raw, so I mean, you can just go on if you want to go and talk about wrestling some more. Tom's the person for that. So enjoy the rest of your night, day, wherever you are in the world. Conrad wants more of us talking about wrestling more. I'm sure we'll have plenty of more chats, Conrad, me and Queen. We'll need to get all of us together again one day. A little BBR reunion.
We need an OG crew.
Mags
Chit-chat.
and all of us. I think it's time we do that.
JPQ. Me and JPQ.
Oh, JPQ. I haven't talked to JPQ in so long.
Miss you, buddy.
All right. Well, we're going to go raid Tom. We're signing off for now. We'll see you soon. See ya.
Bye.